Hello, everybody. It's Max with Crypto Talk Now. It seems as though there's a lot of doom and gloom when it comes to the overall crypto market. The attack of the SEC on Binance, and let's face it, on top of that, just crypto in general, all across the board. You have 61 different cryptocurrencies labeled as securities, and it just seems as though that this whole thing is never going to end. Well, for today's outlook for Jasmy, as well as the overall crypto market, we're going to address a few key things that I discovered that I thought I would bring to your attention. Let's jump right into it. So, this is from, of course, a annual subscription I have with Investor Place. And of course, for people that watch the live show, they know that I cover this quite often. Now, this, of course, was on the 10th, and I will state that we did get a Fed pause. I felt as though if we got a Fed pause, we should be able to get blast off afterwards. There's, of course, a few other things that happened recently that put a damper on just that. So let's show you this outline. And of course, once there's another update, I definitely will give that to you as well. But, like it says right here, the crypto markets dropped actually last week after the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission brought down the legal hammer on the crypto industry. Of course, this is basically in reference to June 5th, Monday, June 5th, when it all basically started. But, first, in regards to this timeline, if you're not caught up on it, they filed, of course, that lawsuit against Binance Monday the 5th. About 24 hours later, the SEC filed a suit against Coinbase. And it just seems like it's a domino effect basically going on. Both suits allege several things, but the central theme is that cryptos are securities, at least from the SEC, except for BTC. Sounds crazy, right? And therefore require regulation. None of the cryptos on Coinbase or Binance were regulated. And therefore the SEC is saying that both firms were, of course, running illegal exchanges with unregistered securities. So where does this end? Or will it ever end? This is the bottom line. Of course, that's not good for us, especially if we're here in the United States and so on, and even abroad. I mean, let's face it affects everybody. It says the fact that the news was so bad, to the case where for the first time since 2023, we're expressing caution on our bullish outlook, right? I've done this bull run thesis probably about 9 or 10 times now. All right, it says technically cryptos have broken down. The 2023 technical uptrend is broken. Cryptos now appear to be in a technical sideways consolidation pattern. That is not good. And I have showed you guys numerous times, whether it's on the live show or on some of these recorded videos, some of these things that we pointed out. Pay attention to CPI, pay attention to, other things, right? Whether it's inflation, housing, the job market, you name it, right? We all should pay attention to all these things. And we've stated before that, you could get like things looking good on the uptrend. We got a taste of that a few months ago. It seemed like things were really turning around. We got as high, I believe, as 1.23 trillion. We saw enough momentum to support some of these use cases or cases, I should say, in regards to the news and the actual supported data to basically, have us all pay attention to the 4-year boom cycles. Well, what has happened since then? Well, we're going to get to this. So it says, meanwhile, cryptos continue to diverge from tech stocks and the rest of the stock market. It was great for stocks, especially tech stocks. They surged this week. Cryptos did not. And as we know, usually speaking, crypto also runs in correlation to stocks. Stocks will do well, crypto do well, and so on. Everybody wants to see, a separation from crypto and stocks, but this is definitely not it, right? Not at all. Here's representation of that. So as I got farther into this, it says throw in the SEC suits, and suddenly you have a situation where the fourth crypto boom cycle is at risk. Now, I want to state this. At risk. Does it mean it's completely like no chance of being able to still get this boom cycle? I don't think that's the case. We'll get more into that. But it says, to be clear, we still believe the bulk of the evidence suggests the fourth crypto boom cycle is alive. It kind of seems like it's almost on life support at some points, right? And that is just a temporary setback. But increased caution is warranted. It has become clear to us that the SEC wants to wage war with the crypto industry in the US, and that could ultimately mean the destruction of crypto in America. This whole talk that you see, for instance, that if for any reason, I don't think this is going to happen, but if for any reason Ripple did lose the case, they stated that, Brad Garlinghouse and so on, that they would move out of the United States and so on, operate elsewhere. As far as where that would be, I don't know. Some people said maybe Liechtenstein. I don't know. I mean, that sounds great, but at the end of the day, it would be outside the United States. So what does that mean for us, basically, as far as like investors, and especially when it comes to, let's face it, even Jasmy? Well, we'll also get into that as well. But I do want to point this out. This part right here. To become clear, SEC wants to wage war with the crypto industry. Well, guess what? Finally, the crypto industry, other than just Ripple, is waging war against the SEC. And you're definitely seeing that. That's a good thing, right? And it sucks that we're at all this rift, to say the least. So, in regards to some of this, right? It says, basically speaking, there's a bill that they talked about last week, the comprehensive crypto bill, put forth by Republicans, Representative, or I should say, Patrick McHenry of North Carolina and Glenn Thompson of Pennsylvania. It's basically important. This bill would establish legal guardrails for the crypto industry and end this legal drama. Now, there's a problem with this. It sounds great, right? But as we know, there's a lot of deliberation and it takes time, many months. Some people feel many years. I don't think it's going to be many years. But like what's mentioned here, that bill has a ton of political drama before it becomes law. Yeah, basically speaking. The bill appears likely to, get to the floor of the House, where it will likely pass because Republicans control the House. But its passage through the Democratic-controlled Senate looks less likely. Multiple top Democrats have already expressed opposition to the bill. Regardless, there's a pathway towards resolution of the current legal issues surrounding the crypto industry. There is. But that pathway involves multiple rounds of political boxing, which can drag on for months. Notice the key thing that here I mentioned. Months. A lot of us still feel as though late 2023 going to 2024 and so on, that those are the key highlighted areas. So if we knew beforehand that these are the key times as far as us as the asset holders of these digital assets, or as the SEC wants to refer to as digital securities, I don't agree with that, then we really knew about the big areas of focus that we should pay attention to, right? So if my outlook personally, not necessarily saying you, was I'm going to be holding on to all these assets anyway, and going into the future, I'm going to get most excited about, the beginning of where this is going to, let's face it, go in a positive direction, maybe later in 2023, but especially like 2024, 2025, I can agree, I think, for the most part. Don't speak on behalf of everybody, but by 2025, we should probably see the tip, right, on the highest of the upside when it comes to all-time highs for projects and so on. Now, I'm not fortune teller. That's just what I personally believe. Some people in the minority also feel as though it could be 2026, but usually the general consensus is around that particular time frame, that range, and so on. So, unfortunately, all this in regards to law getting passed and so on, it's not going to happen soon. Like it says here from Investor Place, it's going to take a few months. They do have, however, believe that favorable macroeconomic factors such as falling inflation, a Fed pause, which let's face it, just happened, and a restabilizing economy will help provide a floor on crypto prices. We don't see a big price drop happening anytime soon. Instead, we see cryptos chopping around in sideways consolidation pattern until legislation is passed. But in reality, we have seen a big drop for the overall crypto market. And I'll get into that here actually just right now. As you guys can see right here, Jasmy, it didn't have like a monumental drop since the Fed pause. It's dropped about 2.20%. It could drop more. We know that. And it's down, of course, about 15.25% for the week. As far as the overall crypto market, let me just pull this up for a second. We do see that we're at 1.01 trillion. Even at the time of making this video at the beginning, this was at 1.02 trillion. So maybe by the time you guys get this, we may very well drop below that 1 trillion mark. So, what does this mean for you? What should you do? Or is there going to be panic for uh, you as far as being a Jasmy holder or, holder of many of these different assets and so on? We're going to definitely take a more of a deeper look, as far as I'm concerned, in regards to all this. So, it says, basically speaking, that, they feel as though that they expect a big pop. Excuse me. It says instead they see cryptos chopping around in a sideways consolidation pattern until legislation is passed. True, that's a reality. After which we expect a big pop and continuation of the boom cycle. So, again, the boom cycle is still live. Some people feel as though like, well, this is on live support. Hey, to each his own. But it's definitely worth paying attention to. Overall, them as an investor place, even myself, I kind of lean towards this, right? Because my thing is, yeah, there's a lot of, fear, uncertainty, doubt, the emotions, take place of where people are just going to panic. You're going to see people panic. Let's face it. People that have been holding Jasmy and some of these other assets, you're going to see in the comments or on Reddit, crypto Twitter, YouTube comments, you name it, right? You're going to see who's going to abandon this, and you're also going to see people who are going to realize, no, I'm not going to panic. Let's see how it goes and so on. Some people, of course, will buy more. I took advantage last Friday of last week. I hit my goals for Jasmy. I reported on crypto Twitter and so on. I might have also mentioned it, for instance, in the video. I can't remember. But um, yeah, the way I look at it is, they remain bullish on cryptos. They believe near-term caution is warranted. That's why I'm bringing it to you guys. I think we should all use caution, obviously. I cannot tell you what you should do with these assets. You got to make that decision for yourself, of course. This is financial advice. I'm just trying to bring you guys some um, updates, education, so on. But it says legal headwinds will clear up. I believe that will happen. Until they do, cryptos won't burst higher until that point. Now, let's get into a little bit of some of these key highlights. All right. So I want to point something out here, and that is in regards to this gentleman. Okay. And it's worth pointing out. So here in the United States, we understand that we have like a division when it comes to all this. But for the most part, we're a two-party system, always have been, always will be. That's just my opinion. I think we come close in the past, somewhat, but in reality, that's a long conversation for another day. So in reality, we're a two-party system, and we're very divided. So Republican congressman, like it says here, seeks to oust the SEC chairman Gensler, right, with SEC Stabilization Act. And if you're wondering about this gentleman is Warren Davidson. If you've been following crypto very closely, you should know who he is. If you don't, it's okay. He's a Republican congressman who first introduced the legislation in mid-April. He has filed the SEC Stabilization Act to remove Gary Gensler. So bravo, right? We are all rooting for it. Some people feel as though, well, big deal, Max. You're just, chopping off the head of the snake. It's going to be replaced with somebody else. Same problems and so on. True, but it's going to hold accountable the SEC. It's not just a perfect case of, oh, they're going to replace it with somebody else. These guys are going to be held more accountable and so on. But we're not even remotely to that yet. But anyway, it's at least a step in the positive direction, in my opinion. I don't think anybody in crypto is really rooting for Gary Gensler and so on. If that's the case, you must be just the guy that just shorts, Jasmy and so on. Maybe you're one of the flooders. I don't know. I'm kidding. Anyway, Davidson insists the act aims to safeguard U.S. capital markets from a tyrannical chairman. That's the bottom line, right? The United States of America is supposed to be the, land of the free, home of the brave, and so on. You don't want to see this type of, tyrannical dictators that head up, basically, a department that's supposed to have our best interests at heart as investors. But if you think about the SEC, if they have our best interests at heart, you're tanking the whole market down 90%. How is that really protecting investors? Probably even more than 90% at this point, right? So this legislation filed to remove SEC Chairman Gensler in effort to safeguard, of course, U.S. capital markets. Several Republican lawmakers have openly criticized Gary Gensler for his performance in leading in federal securities regulation division. Like I mentioned earlier, so much division. His intention to introduce legislation to remove Gensler from his position as a Warren Davidson. Less than 2 months ago, or I should say later, Davidson filed a Stabilization Act, right? The SEC Stabilization Act, and shared the news on Twitter on basically June 12th. So what was that, about 3 days ago? Where are we at right now? Yeah. 3 days ago. So, quote, U.S. capital markets must be protected from tyrannical chairmen, including the current one, Davis says in the statement. That's why he's introducing legislation to fix the ongoing abuse of power and ensure protection that is best interest, or that is in the best interest of the market for years to come, right? And that's the key thing. So even if we have the cutting off of the head of the snake, if you will, again, there's some legislation that hopefully will be passed, and it will be a step towards the right direction. So Davison also announced that U.S. Congressman Tom Emmer, a Republican from Minnesota, has joined him in supporting the bill. And we, of course, saw some of this deliberation in the past. These guys, especially if you were watching the whole thing of, Gary Gensler, what was it, about a month ago or so, where he was, he had basically, he was subpoenaed to, face the music, if you will, in front of some of these members of Congress and so on. So Tom Emmer basically said that American investors and industry deserve clear and consistent oversight, not political gamemanship. Very true. This act is going to basically be common sense measures, as I say, to change or to ensure that the SEC prioritizes themselves with the investors they are charged to protect and not the whims of its reckless chair. Right, and they haven't been doing that. There's a lot more, obviously here. I'm gonna jump to this next part, okay? And this is going to tie in some things, and we're going to get more into, for instance, in regards to Jasmy here in a bit. But there's so much. Let's face it, fear. Right? This is a different version of FUD. There's people that will FUD a project, and then there's like the real bigger FUD, which is the bigger players, obviously. And as a result, I just thought, it's time to address some of this stuff because it's obviously on the minds of everybody. It's kind of hard to just bring out a news update when this is something that lingers in the background. Let's just be honest about it. So this comes from CoinGraph News. It says Binance and the U.S. Securities Exchange Commission have been instructed by the judge to come to a mutual agreement that would ensure the safety of U.S.-based assets, while also allowing Binance to continue to operate as per usual. Binance has made clear that a freeze on its assets would prevent them from conducting their operations. Additionally, Binance is required to submit a record of all of their business expenses. Now, there was a note that was on the 13th, and of course, I double-checked to see if there's any other updates in regards to this. Not yet, but maybe at the time you see the video, maybe there is. But last it was reported, the judge has not made a decision regarding the motion to freeze assets, but instead has expressed a preference for both parties to reach an agreement on their own. Requested a status update on ongoing negotiations by Thursday afternoon, which is basically today. So we're going to have to see what goes on with this. I even saw, shout out to Aussie Life. He says this is, good news. And he feels as though that CZ, he hopes his house is in order for the sake of all investors. And we all feel the same way. So let's jump into this. So earlier I showed you guys this. The overall crypto market, is literally tanked below, before my very eyes, from 1.02 trillion with the last 24 hours, now down to 1.01. But again, by the time you get this, it may very well have been below 1 trillion. When we pull up Jasmy, for instance, we do see that, it's down 2.64, close to 3%, or possibly more by the time you get the video. Sitting at 0.003406. However, volume is up about 73%, with about 31 million, coming into Jasmy. So I would say for the most part, people still are recognizing the opportunities. They're accumulating it. For some of these people, maybe people just are shorting it. You never know. But for me personally, this is not something I want to short. Because that's just not me. You know what I mean? Some people do it and it's okay. Some of you guys do it long with leverage and so on. But for me, I'm just looking to accumulate more. I already done that. If we get a massive crash where we lose support even at the threes, I have to admit, for me, myself personally, not financial advice, if we get down to 0.002, yes, I'll buy another bag of Jasmy. Now, why would I do that? Some people say, like, you're just throwing your money away. When it should be better to, like, find out the true bottom and so on. I want to jump into some of these things, okay? So I want to show you this, and we have covered this guy before, Genki Oda. All right, so the last Jasmy video before the last one and so on, We got into the whole thing of why, this guy's a key player. So we know he's a key player. We know that, he, for instance, is got those connections with Jasmy. Also, he's like one of the head guys, if not the head guy from BitPoint. And BitPoint, of course, through this guy, originally introduced BTC as in Bitcoin to the people of Japan many years ago, and he made uh, the BP kiosks, if you will, right? Those little Bitcoin ATMs readily available, blanketed areas literally across Tokyo and other parts of Japan, right? And of course, that's big because he's able to do that. Then what about the future when we have, for instance, get more into Web3, get more of that adoption and so on? And after DFFTs like fully realize, we understand that this guy is literally the guy who can really help get Jasmy going through more of that adoption, okay? Because he has the connections. But what about that in itself, the connections? So I want to show you guys just a tad bit more in regards to this. So I want to give a shout out to this guy, Houston. He says the story of CPI report and the Fed meeting are now over. They are. Let's focus on Jasmy and the news from Japan crypto events. So I wanted to mention all that other stuff before we get into this because let's face it, it needs to be addressed. Okay, so Genki Oda will be one of the speakers. I reported that last time, but I'm gonna put a little more focus on this outline about who he is, what he's about, and why we should pay attention to it. So he's one of course the speakers of IVS Crypto 2023 in Kyoto, Japan. Oh, by the way, that event, like I mentioned before, if you haven't seen the other video, sponsored by what? Ripple. Yeah, very impressive. And for the record, that doesn't mean Jasmy is a direct partner with Ripple. I know some of you guys have mentioned that. That's not the case. I mean, that's why you got to watch the video, not just pull us off the thumbnail. No offense. All right, so the largest crypto conference in Japan, one of the change makers to improve various regulations of the crypto asset market in Japan. He is. He's literally the guy. And some people say, well, sounds good, but I mean, it's just more to it than just that. It's more to it than just BitPoint. Like I mentioned before, also SBI Holdings, managing executive officer, right? So, when we get into this, I'll show you guys this. He's going to be down there at the IVS 2023 Kyoto blockchain conference, right? Sponsored by Ripple. And like I mentioned before, founder of BitPoint, board member of the Japan Crypto Asset Business Association, vice chairman of the board of Japan Virtual and Crypto Assets Exchange Association, a recognized self-regulatory organization for crypto assets. And most importantly, like I mentioned before, the what? One of the change makers, if not the change maker when it comes to regulations for crypto asset market in Japan. That's big in itself. Really, really big. So this also shows a report from Yahoo Finance. It says this is the largest crypto conference in Japan. And on top of that, let's get into a little bit more of what we have. I want to show you this, and scroll down further. So it says a little deep dive into this article. I mean, I highlighted some of these key things, but sometimes it needs to be reiterated, even though it was just a few days ago. All right, so just hear me out again. Okay, so it says according to the Nihon Kazai Shimbun, the Japanese Crypto Asset Exchange Association decided on the 6th to appoint Genki Oda as its new chairman. Now, who is Genki Oda? Well, like it says, JVCEA Vice Chairman Genki Oda, who is also the CEO of cryptocurrency exchange BitPoint Japan. Says Jasmy was listed for the first time in Japan on the crypto exchange BitPoint. We know about this, right? That happened basically October 27, 2021. That, of course, was huge because, I mean, he mentions Jasmy by name numerous times. There's many genius researchers in our community. Do your own research, you should. But it also mentions on February, SBI Holdings made BitPoint Japan Limited a wholly owned subsidiary by acquiring 49% shares of BitPoint. So 49% shares of BitPoint. Understand this guy's got close ties with Jasmy, right? BitPoint's a key partner to Jasmy, has been for at least a couple years now, right? It's worth pointing out again. But this is why we reiterate this here as of recently, right? So understand, Genki Oda, Understand the whole thing with SBI, understand the whole thing of obviously with Bitcoin. Now, it goes on to mention the Japanese business environment is a little different from the rest of the world than they are. All right, they work as a team, and you always will find alliances between companies to achieve one goal, and that's Japan first. So, in this, it mentions JVCEA proposes issues and improvement measures for crypto asset IEO and leverage trading at LDP Web 3, right? And that's always worth pointing out, right? Because I mean, we got to know what's going on with all this. So I'm going to jump into this, and I'm going to show you some of these key things. Number one, if you're wondering about JVCEA, it basically stands for, again, like I mentioned earlier, I hit the wrong button right there. Sorry about that. Japan Virtual Currency Exchange Association. And earlier, they used to be referred to as the FSA. And some people have remarked, well, this is, Japan's version of the SEC. I don't even think that's fair enough to say, to be honest. I think that is such a, slap to, the JVCEA, even label it in the same category as, like, the Japanese version of the SEC. But in reality, I guess you could say they are, but they get it, right? Instead of basically backhanding the crypto industry and, like how a lot of these companies, let's face it, are probably going to have to leave the United States and go elsewhere. Instead, they embrace it, right? So if they're embracing it, well, like, what is that going to entail? So I want to show you guys just a little bit more of what we have here. And it says, JVCEA proposes an improvement measures for crypto asset IEO and leverage trading at LDP Web 3 PT. Excuse me. So as I got into this, it says, crypto asset review process, the Liberal Democratic Party's Web 3 project team held its first meeting on June 6th. That wasn't that long ago. At this conference, the guy we're talking about here, right, that deserves to get the main part of the focus, Genki Oda. Let me blow this up a little bit more. It mentions a few key things here. So, it states that at this conference, Genki Oda, who's the vice chairman of the JCAE or JVCA, reported on regulatory compliance of crypto asset exchange service providers. In it, he explained the problems facing the expansion of the domestic IEO market and the improvement measures. He also made recommendations for leverage reform. In October 2021, JVCEA launched the Crypto Asset Review Task Force and has been working on improving the review system and improving work efficiency. Now, I know there's a lot of this is like, again, me doing the whole verbatim thing, but you're going to understand why I decided to include this for this outline. Because, again, here in the United States, it seems like, there's a lot of, let's face, almost all cryptos are the target of the SEC. Well, if this particular task force, if you will, is assigned to improve and review the system of cryptocurrency in Japan and those various projects, well, that means they have due diligence. They have, for instance, just that regulatory compliance to make sure that they're safeguarding Japanese citizens and so on. Where I'm getting at with this is basically this, okay? So understanding this, our SEC in the United States is supposed to safeguard us, but they're not really doing that. They're just destroying the whole industry. In Japan, it's a different type of thing. So the reason why I'm showing this is because in Japan, it's like this guy, Genki Oda, for instance, he is responsible. He's literally like the head guy who has to, make sure that projects like Jasmy are in compliance, that they're, reaching volume metrics. It's going to talk about some of these key things about, like, what about if the price tanks and so on and so forth. So look what it says here. A result of the workload of member companies, JVCA and the Financial Service Agency has been greatly reduced. It says, for instance, there's this greenlit system, and it's to significantly improve the efficiency of domestic virtual currency listing examinations. It says, as a result, the crypto asset review process has become much more efficient, with only 2 pending reviews at the end of April. In March of 2022, the number of crypto assets held or handled in Japan was less than 50 types. Like, not that much, right? But as of May 23, it's expanded to 91 types. All right, so it's like really strict over there, right? But in a good way. So just because there's less cryptos over there, again, kind of like the concept of like quality over quantity, let's face it, on CMC, you saw roughly over 22,000 projects. People stated, like Brad Garlinghouse of Ripple, that basically 99% of them go away. So it says for ICOs and IEOs, the main points of examination have been clarified. More appropriate examination have been conducted, and accuracy and speed have been improved. As a result, 4 IEOs have been realized in Japan since what? 2021. In addition, the Web3 white paper released by the Liberal Democratic Party clearly states the promotion of IEO. Now, you may be wondering, like, I don't know what IEO is, and we're just going to take a brief moment to give you an idea of what this is. This comes from Cointelegraph a while ago. So here it is, right? An IEO is an initial exchange offering. We know that an ICO is an initial coin offering. This can be simply defined as a sale of tokens conducted via an established mode of exchanging cryptocurrency arising from the loss of trust in initial coin offerings or ICOs. IEOs are done with the same objective but through a different conducting platform. So, in a nutshell, what's the difference? Difference is ICOs are organized through a company's, or I should say, through a holding company's own platform, while IEOs are done by cryptocurrency exchanges on behalf of a company that is raising funds via token sales. Now that we know that, let's jump back to this for just a brief moment. And it basically mentions that some IEO cases in Japan have problems such as price declines. And this, again, is why I'm pointing it out for you as a Jasmy holder, investor, and so on, right? Because we have seen price declines, especially the flooders will always point that out. Oh, look at the chart, blatant rug pull, blah, 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 right? So as price declines and insufficient trading volumes, right? And like I pointed out earlier, we don't have insufficient trading volume. We have massive trading volume, right? So, it's, what was I say earlier, 72% up? That was really, really significant. And on top of that, just a double check, yeah, 31 million to be exact. So 33.26 million, 31 million, basically, that's what it represents. All right. So, this basically, leads to the concerns that there may adversely affect the review of crypto assets as a whole, right? So this guy, Genki Oda, if he's the head guy, right, who's behind all this, right, and so on, you better believe that there's going to be a lot of pressure and so on. Like, basically speaking, if Jasmy is a scam, which of course I don't believe it is, then this trumps all the FUD about Jasmy being a scam. Think about it for a second. So he is the head guy. He has to see if there's massive price decline and there's, insufficient trading volume. And as we know, and I'm literally showing you proof to a sense, that that's not the case when it comes to Jasmy. So while we point out some of the fear, the uncertainty, doubt that, let's face it, we're all experiencing right now is a very emotional roller coaster. Some people are going to quit this race. Some aren't. Me personally, I'm going to get to the finish line. I know what's ahead for Jasmy and a lot of these other assets and so on because of what they built, right? The innovation and so on. So I thought I would share this with you guys because, again, it's like, it's part of the research, understanding that, Genki Oda, I mean, he has to get it right, right? And he being, replaced, I should say, not replaced, but chosen to be, appointed as the new chairman of the JVCEA, aka Japan's version of the SEC, right? Formerly known as, was it the FSA? Yes, he has to get it right. Otherwise, I imagine he would be removed. Unlike Gary Gensler, who hopefully he's removed. But anyway, these are the points I'm trying to get across to you. So, it mentions other things, right? Problem with liquidity. Jasmy doesn't have a problem with liquidity, right? And you can look more into this article. I know I elaborated on a lot, but I wanted to share that with you guys. Now, last but not least, I want to take you over to here. We have shown you guys this site before, and that basically is this, right? This is going to happen June 28th through the 30th at Kyoto, Japan. It's Japan's largest crypto conference. Of course, like I pointed out before, it is sponsored by, Diamond sponsor is Ripple, right? So if you're wondering, well, who's one of the speakers from Ripple? That's basically going to be here. And let's jump into that. So, it says top Web3 players from all around the world. One of the key highlights towards the top is Emi Yoshikawa. She's one of the vice presidents from Ripple, right? That's cool stuff in itself. That's to be expected because, Ripple's a Diamond sponsor. But I'm going to show you guys this part here where it says, the actual speakers. And I did show this in another video, but, nonetheless, I'm going to show you guys again. Here's the full speaker list. And there again is Genki Oda, and he's literally listed at the very, very, very top. All right. Managing Executive Officer, SBI Holdings. I think they even have a profile for him. Yes, they do. And again, it says all the things I basically mentioned throughout the video. But one again, excuse me. One of the key things here is he's one of the change makers to improve various regulations of crypto asset market in Japan. Right? Big stuff. So I mean, his ties to Jasmy through BitPoint. And then on top of that, SBI Holdings representing a large share of what? BitPoint. So when we talk about these alliances and how they're connected and how these guys hold big shares of what is referred to as alliance, you better believe it's in his best interest that Jasmy does well because it reflects upon him, and especially in the position that he's basically in. And that's what I definitely want to share with you guys. So hopefully it gives you guys better or broader perspective about all this and why we pay attention to it. The next Jasmy video, of course, we'll get back to the traditional format of some of these deep dives and so on. I found some recent material in regards to Toyota, Panasonic. Yeah, you're gonna want to pay attention to that. Some big stuff. And if anything, guys, glad to bring it to you guys and so on. As the saying goes, know what you hold, know why you hold it. The research trumps FUD 110%. Like, comment, subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thanks again for watching this video. We'll see you on the next one.